Some lies aren't loud, they don't scream. They whisper through your choices. They echo in your silence. And perhaps the most dangerous one is the one you don't even realize you've been telling yourself. Not to deceive others, but to protect the fragile image of who you think you are supposed to be. This lie isn't spoken out loud. It's the invisible veil between the life you say you want and the frequency you actually live from. And it shows up not as failure, but as contradiction. You meditate, visualize, journal, affirm, yet still feel far from the world your soul is longing to create. Why? Because underneath the words, the energy is saying something else. Neville Goddard said it clearly. Imagination creates reality. But here's what he also knew. Imagination poisoned by self-deception creates spiritual static. You're imagining abundance while fearing loss. You're imagining love while assuming abandonment. You're picturing your dream life, while secretly believing you're not ready to let go of the one that keeps you small. And that's not your fault. It's your survival system trying to keep you emotionally safe. Because stepping into the unknown version of you requires the death of the familiar lie. The lie that says, maybe if I do more, I'll finally feel worthy. But more isn't the answer. Alignment is. Dr. Joe Vitale said it with striking clarity. The law of attraction doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you believe, what your nervous system registers as familiar and safe. Most people affirm wealth while broadcasting scarcity. They speak health while embodying stress. They declare love while vibrating unworthiness. And they wonder why nothing changes, even though they're doing everything right. But it's not the doing. It's the being. The silent assumption behind the action. The unseen emotional posture. Because every affirmation you say with a trembling heart is a mixed signal sent to a mirror that only reflects what you fully accept. This is the paradox. You say, I am abundant, but you feel like you're pretending. You say, it is done, but your body contracts in disbelief. And this is where self-honesty becomes sacred. Not the kind that blames or condemns, but the kind that liberates. The kind that says, maybe I'm scared, maybe I don't fully trust yet, but I am ready to see what's true. Because until you do, you'll keep wearing two masks, one for the world and one for your spirit, and expect the mirror of reality to know which one to reflect. But the mirror doesn't guess. It reflects the mask you feel most at home in. There is no shame in lying to yourself. We all do it, not to manipulate, but to survive, to make sense of the dissonance between what we dream and what we've lived. But there comes a moment when survival turns into sabotage, when the performance begins to suffocate the soul. And in that moment, you don't need more vision boards. You need truth. Quiet, raw, compassionate truth. The kind that says, I don't need to fake this anymore. I need to feel this real. Because that's the only thing that changes the frequency. Not the words, not the rituals, the energy behind them. So I ask you gently, what would happen if you stopped pretending you're already there, and instead felt what it's like to be fully here, and begin again from truth? What would happen if you allowed yourself to say, I'm not broken, I'm just becoming? Because the universe doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be real. And from there, everything starts to shift. The invisible lie is, I'm doing everything right. There's a moment in the journey where you begin to believe you've done it all. You've read the books, watched the teachings, practiced the rituals. You meditate with sincerity. You visualize with effort. You affirm with discipline. And still, nothing external seems to change. A quiet frustration begins to build, not because you're lazy or unwilling, but because you've been led to believe that right action equals aligned manifestation. But this is the invisible lie, a subtle illusion. Because manifestation is not mechanical, it's vibrational. You see, action without identity is motion without direction. And this is where most get stuck. They think their effort is proof of their belief. But often, their rituals are masks worn over doubt. It's not that the practices are wrong. It's that the self beneath them hasn't shifted. The one who affirms still doubts. The one who visualizes still fears. The one who meditates still hustles in silence. And so the results reflect not the tools used, but the being behind them. As within, so without. As assumed, so experienced. Neville Goddard spoke of assumption as the hidden engine of reality. Not assumption as thought, but as identity. who you believe you are in the silence between affirmations. That's the true signal. And others, the world, even chance itself, begin to mirror that back to you. Psychologists call it the Pygmalion effect. Reality treats you the way you secretly treat yourself. Not consciously, but energetically. Which means if you believe you are doing everything right, but deep down still feel like someone trying to get there, you're broadcasting almost, not already. This is why the identity behind the action matters more than the action itself. A ritual born from fear will recycle fear. A visualization painted by a doubtful hand carries the color of scarcity. And here's the twist that opens the soul. Doing the right things from the wrong self-image keeps you in an endless loop of effort without embodiment. You might be speaking abundance, but your energy still speaks longing. You might be acting as if, but the as if is dripping in disbelief. So stop and feel. Who are you being when no one is watching? What is the posture of your energy when you're not performing for change? That's where the real transformation begins. Not in adding more practices, but in peeling back the self-deceptions behind them. Because a seed that pretends it's already a tree never receives the rain. It doesn't draw the nurturing it needs. It doesn't root. And so it remains stuck between pretending and becoming. There is no shame in this. Only revelation. A kind of holy clarity. You don't need to do more. You need to remember who you are when all doing stops. And from that place of raw being, reality begins to shift in silence. What happens when you fake confidence while vibrating despair? Confidence isn't what we say. It's what we exhale. It's the tone behind the silence. It's the posture of the energy before any word is spoken. And many walk the path of manifestation thinking they must appear strong, unwavering and certain, when inside they're holding back a flood of fear. They chant affirmations, smile through pain, and dress up their doubt in spiritual language. But what they don't realize is that the universe doesn't respond to performance. It responds to coherence. Dr. Joe Dispenza speaks of heart-brain coherence, not just as a metaphor, but as measurable energy. When the thoughts in your mind contradict the emotions in your heart, your field becomes noisy, disjointed, unclear. Intention loses its power not because it's weak, but because the signal behind it is scrambled. Imagine sending a prayer out with trembling hands while saying, "I know it's mine." The words float, but the frequency sinks. And the result? Confusion, stagnation, repetition. There's a danger in pretending you're aligned when your body tells another story. Your nervous system, your tone, your inner gaze, these are all mirrors of truth. If you fake confidence while vibrating despair, what gets created is not your desire, but your contradiction. The world doesn't listen to your voice. It listens to your state. And if your state is fragmented, the reflection will be too. This is not a punishment. It's precision. The universe doesn't betray you. It reveals you. The truth is that real confidence is quiet. It doesn't try to prove itself. It doesn't need to be loud. It assumes its place like a tree assumes the ground beneath it. Not asking, not pushing, just being. It walks into a room and doesn't ask to be seen, it knows it is. It doesn't argue for the outcome. It becomes the outcome. There is no need to fake when the vibration is whole. But how do you know when your words don't match your energy? You feel it. You speak your dreams aloud and your body tenses. You say, "I am ready," and your breath shortens. You affirm, "It is mine," and your chest contracts. These aren't signs of failure. They're signals of misalignment. And they're sacred because they point to where the healing begins. Not in louder declarations, but in deeper truth. So speak your desires, but then pause. Feel what arises. Let the body tell you if it believes what you just said. That's where honesty begins, not with the mind, but with sensation. And that honesty isn't weakness, it's magnetic. Because when you align your internal state with the truth of what you seek, manifestation becomes natural, unforced, like breath, like sunlight on skin. Because no matter how beautiful the affirmation, if it's spoken over wounds that haven't been seen, the vibration is still despair. You can't perfume over pain and call it clarity. You can't spiritualize dissonance and expect harmony. You must meet the despair, not with fear, but with presence, with softness, with the courage to feel what's real. And in that truth, your frequency begins to change, not because you faked it, but because you felt it into coherence. Why the desire to stay positive is a manifestation sabotage. There's a subtle pressure in the spiritual world, a quiet commandment that says, stay positive no matter what. Smile. Be grateful. Don't let the low emotions take over. But what if that very pressure is the thing holding your manifestation hostage? What if the relentless demand for positivity is actually an escape from the very feelings that need to be seen before you can rise? When you bypass your emotions in the name of being spiritual, you're not raising your vibration. You're layering over it. You're painting white light over a storm that hasn't passed, pretending the thunder isn't still vibrating inside your chest. And the subconscious doesn't forget what you hide. It keeps echoing it in patterns, attracting mirrors that reflect what you won't admit. Not to punish you, but to free you. You see, real manifestation doesn't come from forced light. It comes from felt truth. True creators are not the ones who avoid shadow. They're the ones who walk through it with open eyes. They allow the grief to rise, the anger to burn, the fear to speak, and then they choose, not from repression, but from awareness. Because a feeling fully felt becomes wisdom. It moves, it releases, it evolves. Emotional bypassing dulls the power of your subconscious. It teaches your inner child that some emotions are wrong, some are shameful, and others are allowed only if they fit the image of enlightenment. But your soul doesn't speak in approval, it speaks in presence, and it longs to be fully heard. Messy, radiant, raw, not filtered, not polished, just real. There's a powerful inversion here. The most magnetic people are not those who are always positive. They're those who are fully integrated, who can feel deeply, yet choose alignment, who can cry, then breathe peace, who can witness their despair and still return to their knowing. They don't resist the dark. They transform it by including it in their light. Your emotions are not obstacles. They are data. They are divine messengers, whispering what's incomplete, what needs love, what still echoes as belief. And when you suppress them, you delay your own becoming. Because manifestation doesn't come from the mind alone. It comes from the energy of total coherence. And coherence is born from integration, not denial. You cannot repaint the house while it's on fire. You must feel the heat, smell the smoke, understand where it's coming from. And then, from clarity, not panic, you choose what to build. And this is the true sacredness of feeling. It's not chaos, it's alchemy. So let go of the need to be endlessly positive. Let yourself be real, feel it all. And then, from that grounded truth, feel what you choose to embody, not as escape, but as declaration, not to prove you're spiritual, but to become fully alive. Before we continue, take a breath and ask yourself, what emotion has been quietly shaping your reality while you were trying to look strong? If that question touched something inside you, check the pinned comment. There's something waiting for you there, a small key that might unlock a very real shift. Not more information, just a moment of clarity your energy has been asking for. Now, let's go even further, because the next truth might feel uncomfortable, but it's the discomfort that frees you. The moment you say, it's not working, it's over. There's a thought that passes silently through many minds on the path of manifestation. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it arrives in a sigh, a quiet exhale after trying again. It's not working. And the moment that thought roots itself in your being, the process collapses. Not because the universe denies you, but because your frequency has already walked away from the version of you who receives. Every time you declare that it's not working, what you're really saying is, I no longer believe in what I've assumed. And belief is the anchor that keeps your timeline intact. It's the stabilizing energy that holds the invisible in place long enough to become visible. But when belief dissolves into frustration, you unknowingly shift yourself into a parallel reality, one where what you desired doesn't exist, not because it wasn't meant for you, but because you stopped being the one who had already claimed it. Quantum physics speaks to this. The observer effect shows us that our state of consciousness affects the outcome. Your attention isn't neutral, it's charged. It carries expectation, emotion, vibration, and if your observation carries doubt, then the outcome adjusts to match it. Manifestation isn't just what you visualize, it's who you are while you're watching your life unfold. This is why impatience is more dangerous than it appears. It may feel like a minor emotion, but beneath it lies a subtle declaration of unbelief. It's a vibration that says, "I need proof before I surrender." But the law doesn't work that way. It's not about evidence. It's about assumption. You don't receive because you waited long enough. You receive because you aligned fully. And here lies the twist. Doubt doesn't delay manifestation. It displaces it. It doesn't just pause the process. It moves you onto a different path entirely. And often you don't notice the switch until weeks or months later, when you ask yourself why nothing happened. But something did happen. Your energy changed its direction. You turned the dial of your consciousness. And the mirror adjusted. So how do you stay anchored in one reality long enough for it to bloom? Not by obsessing, not by forcing, but by choosing, once a day, once an hour, once a breath, to return to the state of the wish fulfilled, not with intensity, but with devotion, with presence, with that quiet knowing that says, "It is already mine. I don't need to chase it. I only need to feel it." It's like baking something sacred. You don't open the oven every 2 minutes. You trust the process. You stay present. You allow the invisible ingredients of assumption, emotion, and time to do their sacred work. Because manifestation is not microwaved. It's cultivated. It's held with grace. And it responds to the one who refuses to walk away from their inner reality, no matter how loud the world gets. So the next time your mind whispers, "It's not working," listen deeper, not to silence it, but to see what part of you needs reminding that the seed is already in the soil, and the roots are growing, even if you can't see them yet. The lie of wanting it so bad. Wanting can feel like truth. It feels alive, urgent, holy. You want the money, the peace, the love, the recognition, not out of greed, but because it aches. It pulses through your chest like a prayer. But beneath the surface of that wanting, something more subtle is often unfolding. A hidden confession, a vibration of absence. Because wanting, when held too tightly, becomes a mirror of what we don't yet believe we have. The energy of desire is sacred, but when it is laced with desperation, it no longer magnetizes. It repels, not because the universe is judging your hunger, but because your frequency is broadcasting separation. You're reaching for what you've already decided is not within reach. You're trying to become what you already are, without accepting that truth in your bones. And the more you chase, the further it feels. This is the paradox of manifestation. The deeper you're wanting, the more you must become still. Because desire, when it's pure, doesn't scream. It remembers. It breathes. It assumes. It's not impatient. It's anchored. It doesn't live in someday. It walks now with quiet certainty. Not because the desire is fulfilled in the material world, but because it's fulfilled within the self-image first. And that inner assumption becomes the signal that shapes the outer world. You see, the real block is not the desire. It's the identity that says, "I don't have it yet." That's the voice that slows everything down. Because manifestation doesn't respond to your voice, it responds to your vibration. And your vibration is a reflection of your beliefs. Not your words, not your longing, but the truth you've accepted in silence. This is where freedom begins. In the shift from "I want" to "I am returning to," you're not chasing a new reality. You're realigning with one that already exists in a higher version of you. You're not pulling something in from the outside. You're peeling back the layers of fear and doubt that made you forget it was already inside. And this is not metaphor. It's magnetic law. You don't attract what you crave. You attract what you claim. The self that already has it, the peace, the love, the wealth, is not loud. It is clear. It does not plead. It receives. Not because of arrogance, but because of attunement. It walks with the knowing that the universe responds to being, not begging. And when you embody that frequency, doors open, not because you pushed them, but because you stopped standing in the way. Wanting is not wrong. It's a signal. But once it's felt, you must release it. Not to forget it, but to embody it. To become the version of you that no longer needs to scream into the void, but whispers to the heart of the universe, "I remember. I am already here." And from that place, manifestation isn't an outcome. It's a return, a quiet arrival, a homecoming into the self that was never lacking to begin with. Beware of spiritual hustling. Sometimes the most exhausting part of the spiritual path is not the wait. It's the chase, the trying, the invisible race you run with yourself, adding more meditations, more affirmations, more journaling, more methods, more techniques, not out of devotion, but out of fear. You light candles not to honor the divine, but to soothe your doubt. You repeat mantras not as declarations, but as desperate attempts to silence the panic within. And you call it spiritual, but beneath the surface, it's still hustling. This is the hidden trap. You've taken the old energy, the compulsion to prove, to push, to earn, and dressed it in spiritual clothing. You tell yourself you're aligning, but your nervous system is still wired for striving. You're still trying to control the outcome through quantity. More rituals, more discipline, more doing, as if your worth depends on effort, as if the universe responds to sweat instead of surrender. The paradox is sharp. The more you chase your manifestation, the more you signal that it is missing. The more techniques you stack, the more your energy confesses, I don't trust this to happen unless I force it. And so, without realizing, you entangle your soul in a web of spiritual performance, checking boxes, hoping the universe is watching. But the universe doesn't speak the language of ritual. It speaks the language of frequency. Devotion is different. Devotion is soft, still, present. It's the quiet choice to return to the inner state of the wish fulfilled, not because you're afraid of what happens if you don't, but because it feels like home. There is no panic in devotion. There is no exhaustion. It is not about how much you do. It is about how deeply you feel. And when that shift occurs, everything changes. So much of what you've been taught was rooted in the idea that you must earn your transformation. But what if that's the final illusion? What if the most sacred rituals are the ones done in silence, with no audience, with no checklist, only presence? Because the truth is, trying harder proves you still don't believe it's already yours. The ones who receive are not the ones who strive the most. They're the ones who stop needing to strive at all. You don't need 10 rituals a day to manifest. You need one honest moment of energetic clarity. You need one still breath where you fully return to the identity of the one who already is. And from that space, everything aligns, not because you pushed harder, but because you finally stepped aside. A calm king doesn't check his crown. He wears it. He walks as though it belongs to him. And so does the spiritually mature creator, no longer hustling for results, no longer addicted to doing, but resting in the knowing that the seed already knows how to bloom. The work is not to force it open. The work is to trust the light. There's a hidden wound beneath so many spiritual journeys. It doesn't wear a name on its surface, but it lives in the silence between every affirmation. It shows up when you say, I am abundant, but deep down you wonder, have I done enough to earn this? It whispers when you visualize your dream life, but feel guilt rise in your chest. It is the belief that you must deserve what you desire, that before you can receive, you must prove your worth. And that lie is not spiritual. It's inherited. From childhood, many are taught that love must be earned, approval must be won, success must be justified. And so, unconsciously, that same framework is carried into manifestation. You believe that wealth, love, freedom, or peace are things you must qualify for, that the universe is some silent judge, tallying your rituals, weighing your worth, deciding if you're finally enough. But the truth is far more liberating and more confronting. Worth isn't something you acquire, it's something you remember. Shame is the weight that distorts the signal. Neuroscience shows that shame shuts down the brain's reward systems. When you believe you're not enough, your biology mirrors that belief. Your actions become hesitant. Your desires feel unsafe. You don't reach fully because something inside whispers, maybe I'm asking for too much. And so the energy you send into the quantum field is laced with self-rejection. And what returns is not punishment, but reflection. You don't manifest what you think you deserve. You manifest what your energy says is familiar. And if the feeling of undeservingness is what your nervous system knows best, it will continue to attract scenarios that match that emotional baseline. Not because you are cursed, but because the body is always loyal to its dominant state, which means healing isn't about becoming better. It's about becoming true. The universe does not reward worth. It mirrors it. And when you no longer perform for your blessings, when you stop asking for permission to rise, everything softens. You begin to receive, Not because you finally proved yourself, but because you stopped pretending you had to. You were pre-approved long before you ever needed confirmation. The version of you who is abundant, whole, seen, and supported already exists. It's not a future self. It's a deeper self. And returning to that identity isn't a reward for hard work. It's the natural result of releasing the lie that says, I must earn this. The sun never applies for permission to rise. It doesn't seek applause. It doesn't ask if it's good enough to shine today. It simply does. And so do you, when you stop chasing your worth and start embodying the self that knows it was never in question. Why you don't believe what you say, and neither does the universe? You say the words, I am abundant, I am loved, I am free. But something inside doesn't move. The body tightens, the breath shortens, and the universe remains silent. Not because it's ignoring you, but because it's listening to something deeper than your voice. It's listening to your vibration, your nervous system, your truth. Affirmations are not magic spells. They are mirrors. And if the emotion behind them doesn't match the reality they describe, they bounce off the walls of your mind without ever reaching the subconscious. The brain rewires through repetition infused with emotional charge. Without that charge, there is no imprint, no transformation, just words. You're not blocked. You're just not feeling what you're saying. The subconscious doesn't speak English. It speaks energy. And the universe responds to the emotion you practice most, not the hope you express once a day, but the feeling you live in every hour. This isn't about force, it's about congruence. When your words match your breath, when your body softens in agreement, that's when the field responds. Not to the performance, but to the presence. Because coherence isn't loud, it's clear, and clarity creates. Telling yourself, I am enough while feeling unworthy only deepens the split. But when you pause, drop into the body and let yourself feel that enoughness, even for a moment, something shifts. The words no longer float. They land, and reality begins to listen. Because now, it recognizes who is speaking, and that voice is real. Real example. She visualized daily and kept attracting the opposite. She did everything they said. Every morning, she lit her candle, closed her eyes, and saw herself living the life she longed for. Wealthy, free, secure. She repeated affirmations with devotion. She held the vision, felt the emotions, stayed consistent. And yet, scarcity kept returning. Bills piled up. Unexpected expenses. A subtle sense of failure crept in. Not just because her reality wasn't shifting, but because she didn't understand why. The answer wasn't in what she did. It was in what she felt while doing it. Her visualizations weren't wrong, but the energy behind them carried residue, silent traces of doubt, grief, and disbelief. As she pictured abundance, her body remembered struggle. As she spoke wealth, her heart whispered fear. The ritual became a disguise for the deeper emotion. I don't really believe this is possible for me. This is the trap of technique without identity, of spiritual discipline without vibrational honesty. You can imagine the perfect life, but if your nervous system is anchored in survival, that vision won't land. The universe mirrors what you feel, not just what you see. And this is not about blame. It's about awareness. Until she faced that emotional residue, not to fix it, but to acknowledge it, her rituals remained surface level. But the moment she stopped trying to get it right and began to feel what was true, something changed. Her energy softened, her assumptions shifted, and the mirror began to reflect her, not the mask. You can put a gold frame around a cracked mirror, but it will still reflect the crack. Healing begins when you stop polishing the image and instead choose to meet the reflection with presence. From there, manifestation becomes alignment, not effort, not performance, just truth, radiating outward. The only truth that sets you free is that you are already it. Manifestation isn't about becoming, it's about remembering. Neville Goddard said, claim yourself to be that which you desire to be, not later, now. The shift happens when you stop seeking and start assuming the identity that already holds what you long for. You don't build the palace, you wake up inside it. When your belief in who you are aligns with what you desire, the world reflects that truth. No more chasing, no more waiting. You are already it. And when you live from that knowing, reality responds not to effort but to essence. The lies you've told yourself were never failures. They were fears trying to keep you safe. But truth doesn't need protection. It needs permission. Neville said, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled." That's not pretending. That's remembering. You're not becoming the version who receives. You are already that self. Beneath the edits, beneath the waiting. What delays manifestation isn't the world, it's the mask. Drop it. Not to prove anything, but to feel everything. The truth is simple. The moment you stop performing, your reality stops resisting. Because now, it finally sees the real you. And when you're ready for what comes next, check the pinned comment. You'll understand why.